Good evening. It's Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. We are here for the CCRPC Board of Directors meeting, having just hit 6 p.m. So I call to order the members present. The first question is, are there any changes or modifications to the agenda?
None from staff.
Seeing and hearing none, moving on to item 2. My perennial favorite, because when I say group expectations, it magically shows up in the chat. There you go. Thank you, Emma. So group expectations, I remind people about those as we proceed. Public comment period for items not on the agenda. Garrett, anything about CBC? No? All right, thank you. Moving to item 3, staff introductions. We have 2. Who wants to go first? Bueller?
Don't all jump at once.
Do you want it, Eliana? Or
I mean, I was gonna say my name is first, so I think I better go first for the sake of the order of the agenda.
Absolutely. Thank
Okay,
you. Please
thank you.
proceed.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Eliana Fox. I am a transportation planner here at the CCRPC. I've been here for just over 2 years, so I'm still the newest member of the transportation staff. I guess a little bit about me. I live in Burlington with my partner Connor. We recently sort of bought a house, so that's very exciting. Excited to put down roots here. Not that we didn't have roots here, but excited to have more permanent roots. As far as my professional background, I like to say that my previous work was sort of parallel to transportation planning, not directly transportation planning. So prior to CCRPC, I spent 2 years working at Champlain College as the transportation coordinator, so doing transportation operations, shuttle service and parking management, that sort of thing. Prior to that, I worked at Locomotion doing bike safety education and outreach. And then prior to that, this is where the full circle moment happens. I worked at the UVM Transportation Research Center on 2 UPWP funded research projects on a bike count program in Chittenden County and an evaluation of CCRPC's 2017 active transportation plan. And so I'll get into how that's full circle in a moment and when I get into my work. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, I also serve on Burlington's Public Works Commission. So I will jump to that meeting immediately after this one. So wish I could stay on longer with you all. And then, yeah, just a quick overview of some of the things I do here at CCRPC. I'm primarily focused on some of our transit planning and active transportation planning work, sort of broadly, and then have been supporting various projects and other discrete GIS mapping things. So, and data collection. So think like town plan map updates, and then also working on traffic data collection. And then I guess a couple of specific examples within that. One of the projects that I'm managing right now that I'm really enjoying is a project on Pearl Street in Essex Junction that's looking at evaluating crosswalk designs and the half-mile stretch that's just west of the Exposition, if y'all know where that is, because it's a half-mile stretch that doesn't have any crosswalks and it is slated to be densified in the coming years with their transit-oriented development. So that's one project. And then as far as an example for the transit planning work, I've been coordinating our Older Adults and Persons with Disabilities Committee. You may have heard a little bit about that from Charlie recently. So yeah, just managing all of the partners and GMT and SSTA in that group to get us together several times a year to discuss that program. And I think I will leave it there and happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Well, thank you for joining us, RPC. Sound like you're doing a lot already. I thought I did a lot when I started hearing what things you do in the committees and I probably sit on. I'm like, wow, I don't do a lot no more. So thank you for all you do. Bruce
Thanks,
Wilson
Bruce.
came in the boardroom. Easy. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce.
Sorry. Now it's time for you to sing a song.
Sorry, Bard,
Bard,
you're muted.
Oh, that would be a perfect time for me to sing a song. I apologize. If there are no further questions, move on to Jason.
Great, thanks, Bard. Hey, everyone. Jason Charest. I'm a senior transportation planning engineer here at the CCRPC. I am going on 19 years here. I started maybe a month or two after Brian and Eleni. So I've been working with them for a while now. I'm from New Hampshire originally. I found my way up here via college. I went to St. Mike's and UVM. St. Mike's engineering program is in partnership with UVM, so it's a 5-year program. So I have 2 bachelor degrees, not a master's, but a bachelor in liberal arts from St. Mike's and civil engineering from UVM. I was hired because it was thought we needed some technical expertise on staff. And so that is where I mostly reside on the transportation side of things. Anything that has a bit more technical need, I've usually stepped in there in some shape or fashion over the multiple years. This started with safety audits, speed studies, intersection capacity analysis for municipalities, and then working with Eleni and Dave Roberts, who I think many of you know now works for VIC on other various scoping projects and managing consultants. I now manage our regional travel demand model, which is our macroscopic model of the county that we have and maintain. We don't use too often, but we do use at the very least every time we update our long range plan, our metropolitan transportation plan every 5 years. And then a recent application of that is actually it was used for the Burlington-Winooski Bridge to understand the effects of either a partial closure or a full closure and what sort of traffic impacts that would have on the region. And yeah, every year I manage a fair amount of studies through the help of consultants, a couple of ongoing ones. Right now, our Main Street study, scoping study in Burlington, scoping study for the US 2 Clay Point Road and intersection in Colchester. Burlington is updating their comprehensive plan, so I'll be helping out on the transportation element of that. We actually have a podcast going for that project, so I can drop a link in the chat. They're short. My counterpart over at Public Works, Philip Peterson, I think he was here at the last meeting. He does a lot of stuff with Media Factory, so he actually has taught podcasts. So that's kind of where that got folded into this effort. But I think it's a neat new form of outreach that we're doing as part of this. So there'll be like 10-minute bite-sized podcasts. So if you're interested, you're welcome to check those out. I live in Burlington with my wife and a 9-year-old son. He's active in sports. I grew up playing sports. I still play a fair amount of them, as much as I can at least. Yeah, soccer, snowboarding. My latest hobby is fly fishing, so that's been pretty interesting to me. Lots to learn. And yeah, I'll stop there.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. Any questions or comments for Jason?
Yeah, Dana, go for it.
I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. Are you working on the closure of the bridge between Winooski and Burlington? Is that actually happening?
We are involved in the that bridge project, and as part of that project, it is being put out to bid. The contractor will have the option of closing a bridge, closing the Burlington Municipal Bridge for a short time period. That is not our preferred recommendation right now, but it is something that the contractor could do for a short while. But odds are that will maintain at least one, if not two lanes in the southbound direction throughout the duration of the project. But that'll remain to be seen as to how a contractor submits their bid and what they want to do there.
Right.
Thank you for
Jason,
that.
oh,
That
go
would
ahead,
be,
sorry.
I'd like to have CCRPC stay on sort of keeping us up to date on that, because that sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, Eleni and I are part of that project team, so we're involved in their monthly meetings and be happy to keep you all apprised of those details.
Jason,
Great,
if I
thanks.
remember from projects in our town, they typically have a communications plan and sometimes like a weekly email that says what's planned for the construction, what's coming up, what's been finished,
Yeah,
and what
that's
to
a-
expect.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bard. VTrans recently hired a public outreach officer, so they will be running point on that sort of thing. And I imagine that some sort of a weekly update or whatever the duration is, update will be part of that.
Thank you. Other questions? Catherine, did I
Yeah.
see your hand up?
Yeah, I just a fun one. So if you're going into fly fishing, are you into making your own flies?
I dabble in that a little bit. I wouldn't say my flies are fishable at this point. But if anybody is interested in taking them and giving them a shot, you're more than welcome to them.
So I have a question, Bruce Wilson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bruce.
Jason.
Yeah.
So, wow, man, it's an incredible work. I know since 2024, I've been following, as you know, I've been following this bridge work, and so I know is this supposed to be done in 2029?
2029, yeah, with it finishing up 2030, I believe.
So the bridge is gonna be done in 2029. It's gonna be finished.
That is the current schedule, and I think 2030 is the actual
Okay.
completion.
Yeah, and so so the bridge is supposed to be like 100 years, over 100 years old, something like that. And it's
The current-
it's supposed to be 100 years
Yeah,
old.
the current
Over
bridge
100.
is roughly that old.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So so it's 2027, and you already have. I'm sorry, I might have missed it. You had the concept of the bridge already. Some people were saying that might be built on another site and then dropped there to that site. So how far? I mean, it sounds like I hear what you're saying. You know, you talk about consultants and things, but I really don't understand what's going on with the bridge still. You know, so right now, 2027, where are we? It's in a couple words. Just, I mean, you know, long as it take you, but I just, from our little tiny brain, I just want to know where
Yeah.
we are with that. And so, go ahead. Thank you.
Sure. We have what's called right now a base technical concept. So, like I said, Eleni and I have been sitting in on these project meetings. VTrans has contracted with a consultant to come up with that concept. And so that, when I say it's being put out to bid, that is what is being put out to bid for design build consultants to consider constructing. And they have kind of parameters around which they can apply their own expertise and creativity in terms of how they will construct the base technical concept. And so once they, once somebody gets the job, that's when things will really get going, and that's shortly thereafter. That's when construction will start, will commence, and that's when you'll really start seeing people out there on the ground. And I know many have seen people out there on the bridge. They've been doing a lot of research and data collection in terms of utilities and whatnot on and around the bridge up until this point.
Jason, so just to repeat, then the design and construction method won't be known until a design build contractor is selected?
Correct, yeah.
The goal,
Yeah, we won't know for sure. They have some wiggle room.
Look at up the drawbridge.
All right, thank you. Other questions or comments for Jason? Thank you for that explanation.
There's always something comes up.
Yeah. and thanks
Hearing
for
nothing.
Eliana dropping a link to the project in the
Oh,
chat.
awesome. Thank you. Then let's move on to item 4A, tip amendments. Charlie, who will take the lead on tip amendments?
Yeah, so these two items are under the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any further discussion or comments?
There's no discussion on consent agenda items. You have to
Okay.
pull them off the consent agenda if you want to discuss them.
Any comments about moving to the consent agenda?
Go, Jeff.
All right. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
All right.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the consent agenda passes. Moving to item 5, draft minutes of the January 21st, 2026 board meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the minutes with Catherine's edits.
Second.
Thank you.
Dan
I have-
Karen,
Uh,
second.
I may have missed something, but I have no edits this time.
Well,
There
the
isn't
null
any.
set.
You're slacking, Catherine.
I know.
All right, approval is moved and seconded. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the draft minutes, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions?
Brad Holden abstain.
Thank you. So that passes. Thank you for that. On to item 6, second quarter FY26 financial. Forrest.
Thank you, Bard. Good evening, everybody. So you received a voluminous amount of financial statements in your packet as well as a memo. Try to be concise here. The broad overview is starting with the balance sheet. Happy to dig into any of these if there are questions. But let's start with the high-level summary here. We have a healthy balance sheet, strong cash balances. There is more money coming in than going out. So receivables are money that we're expecting. Payables, obviously bills we have to pay. And we're not carrying any debt, which is great. As far as the revenues versus expenses sheet, nice staff billing through December. This can be difficult. I say this every year, saying it again. Lot of vacation and holiday hours, July, August, and then November and December. So 48% against 50% of the budget year is a nice number. We're also looking at expenses being at 47%, which is helping with our surplus. A part of that is the reduction in fringes, which is somewhat significant. What's driving that to a degree is we had a surplus of health insurance funds. We self-insure. We've done that for, I think, 6 years now. And we had some funds left over from 2024 that weren't paid out. And by the rules of the situation, that money comes back to the employees and to the organization. And we chose to allocate those funds coming back to the CCRPC toward our health insurance expenses this year. So that's about $93,000. That's a nice help. And that is helping us get to a surplus of revenues over expenses of just over 55,000 halfway through the year. And even without the surplus of health insurance funds, we would have been maybe negative 22,000. That's not a bad place to be in through December. So it's not just the surplus. It's also just nice staff billing and hopefully sound financial budgeting and management all the way around. So everything being equal, we are looking at, if you recall, our mid-year budget adjustment showed, I believe, a deficit of around $35,000 through the end of the fiscal year. With the inclusion of these surplus health insurance funds, we could be closer to around 60. Just to throw an actual number out there. Any questions on any of the sheets or details or anything that I just ran through?
Jeff.
Just a quick one, quick
Yes, sir.
comment.
Yeah.
We worked forced over pretty well on the finance and executive committee meeting a couple weeks ago on this.
Yeah.
And just for everybody's who hasn't been around for a long time, this is about as good as it gets for the mid-year point in our finances. This is about as good as it gets for, assuming that things don't fall off a cliff in the second half for this organization. And it wasn't always this way. So we should feel good about it, feel good about our staff, but not let our foot off the pedal in anything, because we have a very significant financial commitment to staff, as you see by our salaries and benefits. And we have a very large payroll every month. So it is important to keep this going on. So kudos to the staff and everybody who's worked hard to put us in this position at the halfway point. And we have some positivity with the health insurance coming back to us. We are self-insured. We have reinsurance. But
Yes, we do.
good things, good positions like this don't always happen. So we should feel good about this for at least the next 6 months, and then we can worry next year again.
Thank you, Jeff, for the past and present context. Any other questions or comments for Forrest? Mike.
Forrest, I brought this
Yeah.
up before and I apologize for bringing it up again, but just the terminology in the profit and loss of profit. And it seems to me when we talked about it, were you going to look at, if I remember right, that's kind of the way the software or the whatever works. They use that term.
Yes.
But
Right.
were you going to look into if you could change that?
It's not something I can change.
It's not.
It's the way QuickBooks generates that report. It's a profit and loss or an income statement. So the best we can do is the reports that I generate, that the CCRPC generates, the revenue versus expenses sheet, treats the terminology with more care to us being a governmental entity.
Okay, so we live with that.
They
Thanks,
don't
Mike.
seem to have a nonprofit version.
Right.
And with that, Mr. Chair, I move we accept the financial report.
Dana, did you have your hand up?
Well, I just wanted to thank Jeff for such a concise and helpful summation of things.
Jeff, if we could, before we entertain the motion, Garrett, I think you had your hand up as well.
Well,
No?
you can have
Done?
discussion on the motion, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I
So
was
we have
seconding.
moved and seconded. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, please vote. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? The motion passes. On to a longer conversation,
Thank
I
you.
suspect. Thank you, Forrest. Item 7, Regional Transportation Safety Action Plan.
I will start with that. Thank you. Sai is not here tonight, so I'm stepping in. So you have a memo in your packet on this, providing the background as well as an overview of this safety action plan, as well as we posted the draft report. If you had time to review, and if you did have time to review and you have comments, please reach out to Sai or myself. And tonight we have here Evan Howe from VHB, which is the consultant that assists us with this plan, to give a presentation. And I want to just point out that this is an action item for you at the end, and I'll come back with the motion at the end. So Evan, are you able to actually share your screen and start the presentation, or
I
shall I do it?
am.
You
I can
are.
do that.
Excellent. All right, take it away then. Thank you.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here tonight for the board meeting. We have just finished the draft and soon we'll be finished with the final version of the safety action plan for Chittenden County. I'm going to just flash through some of the structure of that and some of the key parts, why we're doing it, and hopefully you'll all have a chance to read through the final version. This is our agenda for tonight. These are just some of the parts of it, the why, what's in it, those next steps. And really the reason for the why here, there's a federal grant program, Safe Streets for All. I'm sure some of you know about it. It's been out for a few years. It's guaranteed for 1 more year. And we really want to make the towns in the Chittenden County and within the CCRPC boundary eligible to apply. So to apply for one of these grants, which is to do something with your infrastructure or to do a demonstration, you need to have a plan. And they do accept 1 plan for the whole region. So we're getting out ahead so that an Essex or a Colchester doesn't have to do their own plan. These are pretty big money grants. They're pretty competitive. There's a few categories, but just nationwide, it's really been a great way for towns and cities to get access to, a generational investment in safety. So I'll just run through this vision and goals. This is an important part of the plan. We workshopped that with the advisory committee. You do need to make a commitment that your goal is 0 fatalities and serious injuries by a certain date. And we settled on 2045. We'll look at some of those charts, but if you trend that down, that seemed like a realistic pace. There's these goals. Also workshopped with that committee, all things I think we're all in favor of. Skip ahead to here. These were the members of the working group. We had the state, we had rural, urban. We also reached out to the public with a survey, and we held a virtual public meeting to make sure that we heard from all corners. This is some of those top line numbers, right? So this is for all of Chittenden County. On the left, we have the number of crashes with a fatality or a serious injury. And on the right, we have the number of people, which is a little higher. I think we see these in the news, and the ones we see in the news are some of the most extreme ones. A pedestrian or a bicycle crash makes it in the news, a big pileup makes it in the news. Really, most of what we see are serious injuries, a smaller number of fatalities. It's mostly drivers, some pedestrian and cyclist. The number really changes year to year. We tend to be in the 50s for all of them put together. And those serious injuries are the sort of things that really send you to a hospital. I mean, that's where you're not walking away from the scene. So part of this Safe Streets for All approach is we're supposed to really focus on just fatalities and serious injuries. Of course, we don't want any kind of crash, but the focus is what can we do to stop those? So drilling a little deeper into that data, these were the emphasis areas we came up with that account for the bulk of what we see. We see this lane departure, see intersection crashes, we see the VRU, which is vulnerable road users, or you could also call it bike ped, and then how they're split out, right? So the vulnerable road users, it's mostly in the urban and village center, suburban, and these other types more suburban or rural. Defining those a little more, these are pretty big parts of the plan, getting into what we can do for each of those big emphasis areas. On the lane departure, right, that's somebody leaving their lane and then leaving the roadway. There's a lot of different reasons that it happens. It can be drunk driving, it can be falling asleep, it can even be having a heart attack in your car, it can be skidding on snow or ice, but ultimately somebody's going off the road and hitting a tree or hitting something. And this is a huge category. This is almost half the serious injuries and fatalities. Our next category, we have the turning movement conflicts, the intersection crashes. It's about 50-50 if it's at a signal or it's at an unsignalized intersection. So they're pretty scattered around, but same thing. It's a focus area we get a little more into in the plan. The pedestrian and bicyclists, the really interesting thing there is how many of these are not at, we think of it being somebody crossing the street, which it is, but it's usually not at an intersection. So really getting into that data, we found that so many of these are in the middle of the block somewhere. And then the behavioral factors. So that's a big part of this, right? I mean, I think it might surprise a lot of people that almost half of our fatalities and serious injuries are somebody not wearing a seatbelt still. And in 2020, 2021, 2022, that impairment, the drugged and drunk driving is such a big share. And then maybe less surprising, but the excessive speeds happening in about a quarter of the crashes, and especially in our rural crashes. So in the plan, we also look at the geography of these, and we come up with this high injury network. The high injury network are the roads that together are the shortest distance that still adds up to most of the crashes. So the roads in red here have most of the serious crashes. They're only about 5% of the road mileage in Chittenden County. They're a mix of state roads, town roads. They're shown there in a little more detail in the plan, but they really do cover most areas. They don't go everywhere, and they're not. Interesting that some of them are interesting. What's on there and what's not. And I'll leave that to you if you're interested to really poke into. But the plan touches mostly on those roads for where we can make an improvement. And these are the types of improvements that we talk about. So we break it into 4 categories in the plan. We talk about policy and process changes. We talk about their comment. Okay. The demonstration projects are a big part of this. Those grants are a little less competitive and they're still big money. Those can be over $1 million, but to do a demonstration where you put some kind of safety improvement in and you track the data, the before and after, is it helping? How much is it helping? Is it something we should do again somewhere else? We give a lot of ideas for those, and we think of those as maybe the best shot for funding. We also have infrastructure suggestions, and then recommendations for behavior. I'll run through some of those. I'm not going to read all of them, but on policy and process, we have a whole list in the plan. These are some examples. It's everything from some of the enforcement goals. Right now, the thing we mostly track is just how many people did you talk to, how many did you stop, how many tickets did you write. We don't look as much at what was the ticket for. So giving our officers more credit for if you found a DUI, that counts a lot more than writing a speeding ticket. And all the way down to things like appropriate signing, putting crosswalks where they should be. Moving into some of those demonstration projects, for lane departure, we have a menu of those. It's things from lighting, things on the edge of the road, signs, edge lines, rumble strips. For intersections, one of the ones we really like is this near miss detection. A lot of the cameras that we put up now on signals or otherwise can take video where it'll detect 2 cars or a car and a pedestrian almost crashing. And you can get those little clips and you can see, is there a pattern? Is there anything we can do about it? And then the pedestrian and bicyclist. You have different ideas there. Things like, the lighting that turns on when you push the ped button. Things like that. Behavior, the big thing in behavior, we have some of the specifics here and then some of the legislation that keeps being talked about statewide. But the big thing there, in Chittenden County, the only law enforcement agency participating in the enforcement grants right now is the Sheriff's Department. And we know we have a lot more police agencies. We know we have a lot more police agencies that could probably use the funding. So we really want to encourage more participation, even if it's just in one of the high visibility patrol days or starting small. But we really see that there's a gap in traffic enforcement. And of course, education hand in hand. I have some ideas for that too, especially on things like seatbelt that are harder to enforce where it's not a primary offense, but it's just an issue in so many of our crashes. And with that, I can turn this part over to Eliana to talk about some of the next steps.
Thank you, Evan. Well, we are here tonight to present this and actually request adoption of the Regional Safety Action Plan, which is a requirement if we're going to apply for the SS4A grant. And then at the same time, we are going to be doing outreach to the municipalities that they have part of the high injury network to see, if we can actually help them with
I can see that.
Charlie, can you? Okay, thank you. So yes, we're going to be doing outreach to these communities to see if we can actually apply for an SS4A or any other grant, because this plan could be used for other grants. And we have, the plan includes a lot of countermeasures like, safety improvements for this high injury network that could be actually either apply for grants or incorporated into a future projects. Like a lot of them are things that you can incorporate into paving projects, like rumble strips, and other, safety measures. So we're going to be doing that in the coming weeks. We already started putting memos together for each community, and we're going to be reaching out soon. And with that, the last, slide is about the motion that we're asking tonight. Both the Executive Committee and the TAC recommended that the board adopts the 2026 Chittenden County Regional Safety Action Plan. And with that, we can answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Eliana. I have one first question. I'll take sort of the prerogative here. This is Bart. I was contemplating the issue of, for instance, accidents that occur on Route 89, say in Winooski versus Bolton. And of course, Bolton is rural and Winooski is not. Do you think, do you have a way of looking also at federal highway, state highway, local roads, what that breakout is? I
So
suspect you do.
yeah, and I could go back to that map, but mostly it is mostly state roads that hit that high injury network. I think the only ones that aren't are a couple in Burlington and then Williston Road through South Burlington. So it's very true that some form of cooperation with the state is going to be necessary to do a lot of this plan. We just don't see those town highways being where many of those happen.
And additionally, presumably not many on the federal highways either.
Well, I-89 and Route 7, especially the most urban part of 89, is on there. There's been quite a few there and on Route 7.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
So I have a
Garrett,
question.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Wilson.
I'm sorry. I'm not seeing everybody because I can't. So I'm going by the hands that I see raised
Oh, I'm
up
sorry.
on my screen. That's okay. So the first one I saw was Garrett. And come back to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bart. I apologize if this comes across as a rant, but this whole topic is one that is important to me and one that I've been aware of for many, many years as a regular driver and also a professional driver. Even though I'm not able to vote on MPO stuff, but that really doesn't matter. Number one, you referred to cooperation with the state. First step would be for the state to actually answer calls and emails from town government. At least when I was Gore supervisor, I couldn't get anybody at the state to even talk to me. So state AOT and local communication really needs to improve. But on a far bigger topic, I appreciate that there are many, many things that can be done to improve safety on all our roads. However, the biggest single thing that could be done to improve safety on the roads is improving driver capabilities. People believe that having a driver's license is a right, and it's not. It's a privilege. Getting a driver's license is mindlessly easy, and this isn't limited to Vermont. There needs to be far, far more driver training. European countries do skid pad testing, where you take a car out into a specific lot, throw it into a skid, and they teach you how to get out of it. They have test barriers that pop up in front of you, and you might hit them, et cetera, et cetera. The training of drivers in this country is abysmal, and we really, really need to do something to get better trained drivers on the road. I mean, you look at 45% of people not wearing seatbelts. Come on. You know, that just shows people don't even think about it. They don't care. And education and training is really key. And I believe I was disappointed to see there wasn't much in this about training. And I believe that the actual training could do far more to reduce accidents than putting up barriers and more lights and stuff like that. And on that note, I will shut up now.
Thank you, Garrett. Bruce, I think, was next, and then Tess. Bruce?
So basically, Evan, thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it. You know, a lot of work has been done, and Elena. And so basically my question is, you 3 flips up forward towards the beginning of the presentation, you talk about safety equity and working with individuals who might be I don't know, economically challenged, and so what does that really mean? I guess I didn't really understand, because we didn't go over it, but you had it on your flips on this presentation. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Safety equity.
Are we talking about the goals up near the front?
So
Yeah, that
I
was
think
for
so,
me.
Evan, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's in the goals statement here. I think we're
promotes equity and traffic safety. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, to the extent that we can, we want to encourage everybody in this region to apply, whether, that was part of the whole point of this, was make a plan so that our smaller communities or big ones, so that everybody would be eligible, get over that hurdle of having to do what can be a pretty expensive plan. You know, in so many places where you would have to just do it one town at a time, really getting out and doing it for everybody so that everybody can go and get those grants. And I think, I don't want to speak too much for the CCRPC, but I know there's been discussions about supporting grant applications, who's going to apply, what we can do for that. I think the biggest way we want to address that is by opening this up to everybody in the region, to every town.
So I get it. And I really appreciate that you put in there. I don't like the word equity or nothing, because it seems to be applied to people of color when you say equity, and it caught my eye right off. But the thing is that, how are you going to let people, POC people or BIPOC, understand that this is even happening, that this regional safety action plan is happening? There might be some grant involvement, might be something to serve their community, in which that if you look at a community for people who look like me, it's just it's only 1.4 of African Americans who live in a state like me, and we don't really have a community. And so how do you plan to I mean, I don't know if it's you, but how do we plan to get the message to the people that you're trying to reach on the safety?
Bruce, I think what we are trying to do is actually reach out to the towns. It's like the municipality that is going to just take action. We had a survey out, and we got almost 400 people actually just telling us their issues. So we incorporated that into our plan. But right now, it's like once we pass this and it becomes adopted, then we are just going to reach out to Winooski, Burlington, all the municipalities and all the towns and cities that they have this, and they're the ones that they need to decide if they want to move forward to address the safety issues. But I'm happy to talk to you offline if you feel like we need to do more with this plan.
Well, I might have some ideas. I am the Human Rights Commissioner for the Vermont Human Rights Commission for the state of Vermont, and so, and not to mention that I'm a person of color in, diversified or over. I mean, not over other than the people, the minority numbers in the state of Vermont. So I would like to be able to talk to you offline.
Okay, happy to do it.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks, Eleni. Tess.
Thank you for putting the plan together. So hoping you could elaborate on what types of projects the grants could qualify you for that have to do with the plan. Does it have to be a project that's specifically called out in the plan, or does it just have to be in one of these high injury corridors? Because I was just noticing, like, when I read through it, I didn't see anywhere where specifically it was calling out having protected bike lanes. So it just, talked about sort of some other stuff, which was all great. But if like a town wanted to use one of these grants to do something that's not specifically outlined in the plan, could they still do that?
There's a broad range of things that are eligible, and there's a lot in this plan. There's a lot of things that are not even specified on a specific location. I think like what you were picking up, or even like the behavior or the pilots and demonstrations could go in a lot of different places. I think the only thing as far as the actual grant, I would say we want to think big. If you're trying to do something that's $30,000 or $40,000, it's probably not the right grant. This is more of a even bigger than that kind of grant.
Yeah, and I also want to just chime in here and say that some of these like safety improvements, you can do it without further scoping. In some cases, for a protected bike lane or you need to just look a little bit, to go a step further to evaluate right of way and all that stuff. So it has another step. This is a very high level plan with a bunch of different kind of like countermeasures. If you have a specific corridor and you have a specific like issue on that corridor that is on the high injury network, then we can actually look at it and just come to what's the proper next step. Because it might not be applying for a grant right now, it might be just doing scoping. So there is different kind of like approaches here. So Tess, if you have something in mind, let's talk about it.
Bart?
Thank you.
Can I comment, Dan, Karen?
Yes. Yeah, thanks.
This subject is very close to my life. I was state trooper for over 26 years here in Vermont and investigated thousands of accidents, fatal accidents and serious injury accidents, as well as minor accidents, accidents involving vulnerable users. Vulnerable users are bicyclists, pedestrians and such, handicapped people. So there's many factors that play into the statistics. I would be less supportive of weighting it too heavily on fatal accidents as opposed to accidents as a whole, because the difference, is difficult to really narrow down. There's many factors, weather, the lighting conditions, foliage. One of the biggest pet peeves I have in the state of Vermont is that the inability for a lot of communities to go out and cut back foliage that prevents visibility. So when you come around a corner, when you've got things that are blocking your visibility, that needs to be cut back, constantly maintained. But there are many factors playing into it. I'd like to see more put into safety measures, like I'm saying, the cutting back foliage, looking at intersections, and how we are improving things here in the state with intersections and bridges, as we just discussed a little while ago with Winooski Bridge. That'll be nice to get that done. There's weight restrictions. During my college days, I did bridge inspections for the state of Vermont. I traveled throughout the entire state inspecting bridges with somebody from AOT down in Montpelier. That was 40 years ago, but it was interesting to see and to learn a lot about bridges. And the people think of bridges when they start to wobble up and down, it's bad. Well, actually, it's good. You want the flex, but anyhow, I think there are many factors to look at, and I think we're doing a good job, but we could do better. Like I say, cutting back foliage, educating, like Garrett brought up, drivers, but we've got people coming from all over, pedestrians and travelers from Canada or what have you, traveling through the state. They're not aware of the signage. They're not aware of speed limits, maybe in certain areas. So signage is key. Creating safe bikeways and pathways to prevent people crossing over. Burlington's done a terrific job with protecting bicyclists, and as much as that could be pushed out to other communities, it's difficult, obviously, in more rural communities to do the same things Burlington's doing. So that'd be my suggestion.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anybody else have comments? Questions? It seems not, in which case we are ready for a motion to adopt the Regional Transportation Safety Action Plan.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any final comments? Seeing and hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay, or raise your hand. I see none. Any abstentions? I see none. The motion passes. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
Evan.
Thank you, Evan.
I think we're ready to move on to item 8, the Regional Transportation Options Plan. Who will be
And
leading
that's
us
me.
here? Brian, thank you.
Yep. Hi, folks. Brian Davis, Senior Transportation Planner here at the RPC. Nice to see you all. Thanks for the invitation. I am going to try to share my screen. I have maybe a dozen or slides to share with you about this particular plan. All right. All right, how are we looking?
Excellent.
Great. Okay. So in your packet, we've called this a Transportation Options Plan. It can also be called a Transportation Demand Management Plan or TDM plan. And basically what we mean are the programs and policies and incentives that help us maximize the efficiency of our existing built transportation system. And that could be trying to get people to change the mode that they use to get around, changing the times that they choose to get around. Maybe they have a flexible work schedule so they can alleviate congestion during morning and afternoon rush hour, different parking management strategies that we can follow. So that's what we mean by TDM or transportation options. All right, so to help set the stage, let's go back to the I-89 2050 study, which assessed the safety and capacity of Interstate 89 and identified the future needs. And coming out of that plan, it created an implementation plan. And during development of this, there were literally hundreds of different scenarios that were modeled, including different TDM inputs, which then became part of the recommendations package from that plan. And then those TDM objectives were then included in the 2023 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, our long-range plan known as the MTP. However, neither the 89 study or the MTP identified how we would achieve those TDM objectives, but the 89, the recommendations from the 89 study included developing a regional TDM plan to initiate those TDM measures. So that's where we are today. And these bullets were included in the memo in your board packet today. And so these are the things that we're trying to accomplish. We would like to increase the telework share by 50%, focus 90% of new housing in existing developed areas, those places where we want that growth to occur. We would like to double walking and biking trips, triple transit service, increase employer-sponsored TDM participation, reduce the supply of residential parking and increase the cost of paid parking, and finally, implement a mileage-based fee. Keep in mind that these are the long-term targets, not immediate expectations, although that would be nice. So this regional TDM plan, again, our goal was to create this playbook to achieve those goals. Through an RFP process, we hired Tool Design as the lead consultant with RSG and Steer as the sub-consultants. And as with many of our projects, we first formed a project advisory committee to bring in a lot of those key voices and interest groups to the table to help guide that process, including members of our TAC, our TDM partners, the service providers, an urban rep and a rural rep. We review those MTP backgrounds that created those TDM objectives so that we would know where we're starting from and why we're starting with those. And then we started talking to people. We interviewed many of the stakeholders in our region and the state, including, again, the service providers, the advocates, the folks involved in the transportation and TDM. We conducted personal interviews with members of our Community Engagement Advisory Committee. We also talked to our peer communities around the country who have TDM programs to understand where they started from, what their challenges have been, the successes they've accomplished, and how we might replicate that. Again, as with many of our projects, we had an online survey to get some feedback from the public and understand some of those issues from them. And then from that survey, we were able to create 3 different focus groups, creating those different groups that we could ask more direct questions of folks that were experiencing similar sort of transportation conditions. What we learned through all of that outreach kind of reflected what we've heard in many of our previous projects, the desire for a more frequent transit service and expanded routes, make it free or low cost to pay, and make it easy to pay, make those connections to the places that people want to get to, as well as the rural areas. People, talked about the need to maintain what we already have, filling potholes, taking care of the signage and striping, people's preferences for safe, protected, and connected walking and biking infrastructure, better street lighting. We also heard a desire for a focus on mobility justice and racial equity by addressing the needs of low-income households and refugee communities, the financial barriers to access shared mobility services, and again, the desire to address traffic congestion, some of the aggressive driver behaviors, the speeding, and so on. And then we took everything that we heard, we put it all together under the framework of the 4 MTP goals to get to that draft plan. If you had a chance to read it, you can see how that came together, but the next few slides will kind of summarize all the recommendations within those 4 goal frameworks. So the first goal, promoting compact growth and multimodal transportation. We want to make it easier to focus the housing growth into the areas where we desire to see that. So how can we create reduced permitting requirements? Can we help our municipalities with some model TDM regulations so that they're all working with kind of the same framework and not doing something different from their neighbor? Help them with different parking management strategies, different pricing strategies. That's also true for the developers to help them understand the different options available to them as they work on those developments. We can create a TDM toolkit for employers and help them create different programs like parking cash out programs, promote carpooling and van pooling. For example, GoVermont has a subsidized van pool program. Are there ways that we can help make that connection between transit options and different pass programs with employees, into trip facilities like bike parking, showers, lockers, and so on for people who choose to walk or bike to work? Help create those model policies for employers that are able to offer teleworking or flexible work hours. Our partner CATMA is well qualified to help create those kinds of policies. And then this last bullet here, we need to find some more sustainable funding options that will support these TDM efforts. And you might see that come up again in the next slide. The second MTP goal is about transit transformation. There's that sustainable funding bullet again. We would like to help focus and create the core trunk routes for a transit network in partnership with GMT. Focus some of that development along those trunk routes. The density supports transit. And then we can expand, look to expand the transit system and network. We want to make sure that we are listening to feedback from the riders and potential riders on what they would like to see in a transit system, helping to promote transit as an option through outreach and education, coordinating with employers on some different pass options again, make it easy for people to choose transit by creating multimodal trip planning, which exists through Go Vermont and CATMA. And then again, this land uses, as we go through this future land use mapping work that will delineate where we want the growth to happen in our areas. How can we again create those policies that support TDM through that additional development? Moving on to MTP Goal 3. This is about complete streets and active transportation. We have a regional active transportation plan, which we will begin updating next year. We also help our cities and towns create their own local active transportation plans. So this helps us identify those priority networks for walking and biking that we can then help find funding to complete. Again, we talked about those destination amenities like showers and lockers. So if someone does choose to bike somewhere, they have a place to lock the bike and store their stuff. Wayfinding is the term we use for signage and striping that helps people navigate the network to get where they want to go. We want to make sure that we're coordinating these active transportation projects with transit so that it's easy to shift modes. As you know, the popularity of e-bikes continues to grow, so we want to support incentives to make those more accessible for folks. We also want to make sure that people have a safe place to store and charge those electric shared mobility devices. And then we want to help support the young folks getting to and from school by creating safe routes to and from school. And helping to find sustainable funding for those kinds of programs. And finally, the fourth MTP goal is, again, finding those sustainable funding sources, such as a shifting to a mileage-based fee, so we're not just relying on the existing taxes and fees that are in place right now. Some of these are really out of the hands of the RPC and our partners and more at the state level, whether it's through the agency or the legislature. There are alternative revenue options out there that we could consider, such as different tax assessments, different parking pricing structures, green bonds, tax increment financing as an option. And then this last little bullet here, the complementary investments, that could include things like broadband expansion. So if we're encouraging people to work remotely, we want to make sure that they have the proper infrastructure to support that kind of work. As we went through this process, of course, we identified some of these challenges, such as the one-time funding that we've been relying on, the dependency on those federal grants, which are often not really what we need for this kind of work. It may be more competitive than what we like. So that's our MTP goal 4, kind of tried to address some of these challenges, but we also uncovered and, we're able to celebrate some of the opportunities, such as there's really broad support locally, regionally, and across the state for this kind of work. The RPC enjoys strong partnerships with our partners and the state. So that helps move this along. And we look forward to some of the federal funding being either reinstated or new programs created at that level so that, again, we create this safety action plan that will help unlock some of those grant opportunities for our funds. So the same thing can be said for TDM as that funding becomes available at the federal level. So both the executive committee and the TAC enjoyed this presentation as much as I hope you did, and recommend that the board adopt this. So I'm going to stop sharing so we can see each other again.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep. And I will say, you know, if I may, as we developed a FY27 work program and we met with our TDM partners who were involved in this process, we helped bring some of these recommendations into the work that we would like them help do. So it's not just dependent on us to do this. We have those strong partnerships and really help them frame their scopes for their UPWP applications to help nudge this all forward.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Brian? Jeff.
Hi, Brian. Thank
Hey,
you. Thank you for this. I've been around this now for a couple of decades. We always are talking about sustainable funding and alternative funding sources. And I know that the plan is aspirational. But do you really think we're going to triple funding for transit in this environment?
I don't think we'll triple funding, but the
that's
we're
the goal,
looking,
though.
the goal is to triple transit service.
Yeah. Well, how else are we going to do it?
Yeah. Again, it's sustainable funding, and
Yeah.
you know, we're working with GMT, as we all know, they are doing their best.
And they're cutting everything back. They're cutting everything back. I'm fearful in the environment in Washington that events are overtaking our goals. And I know we started back in 2023 on this and those kinds of things, but I'm just nervous. And I'm not suggesting we change it, but triple transit ridership and things like that in this environment is just not plausible. And then when I look at, I mean, we've been talking about mileage fees in lieu of gas tax or to complement gas tax. And I don't think, and I know we say it in there, but I don't think we're sensitive enough to how that's going to affect everybody outside of our core communities in our organization. And I don't know how we're going to come up with the money to income or means test that. And most of the state is rural. So it's a distinctly Burlington core community thing that's going to not go anywhere in Montpelier. So I'm kind of hoping that we can think of some other option in some future plan that doesn't go that way. I mean, that could work in New York City and its suburbs. I doubt it would work in Burlington because too many people come from St. Albans to work in Burlington. And if you start telling the people that are coming to work in Burlington because they like the housing costs, they're a lot lower up in St. Albans, nobody's going to be a fan of a mileage fee to do that. Most importantly, the employers who hire those people who are desperate to have employees.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
And my third comment is remote work is peaked. We have return to the office initiatives and things of that nature. And a lot of the remote work is for people who live in Vermont but telecommute to New York, not people who live in St. Albans and telecommute to Burlington, or people who live in Essex and telecommute to Burlington. So, I mean, some of those things, I think when we do this again, we have to think through a little bit more and make them more specific to our northwest corner in Vermont. Then, you know, it's the same thing with saying 30% of our vehicles are going to be E or hybrid. We need 3,000 charging stations to do that, and we've got under 500. And we're going to do that by 2030. I think we need to, you know, when we do this again, we need to be a little bit more critical of those kinds of things and not just make them so aspirational, because I would say they're not aspirational, they're not realistic. in many respects. And so I'll vote to support this, but I hope that next time we can be a little bit more critical about those types of things. And who knows, maybe the world will change with the midterm elections and in 2024 or 2028 or something like that. But I've been around enough of these that I'm seeing the same stuff and it just gets a different wrapper put around it. And I think we owe it to ourselves to be a little bit more critical and strategic thinking. That's all that I'm going to say.
Thank you, Jeff.
Appreciate the comments. Thanks, Jeff.
I would only add, I am personally, I'm pressed to be optimistic about the money given what's happened, not just in the last year or two, but in the last 20 years in terms of federal tax policy and national debt. Like, the things we paid for infrastructure in the 50s and 60s, the sort of golden years, seem now a distant memory. I'm not sure those days will come back, but I suppose we can hope. That would be aspirational. Garrett, I think you were next.
Once again, I have comments, even though I can't vote. On telecommuting, first person to talk to is the governor of Vermont, having eliminated that and ticked off so many people. I have telecommunicated, or telecommuted would be more accurate, for 40 years. Yes, there are times when you need to go on site. It never should be 100%. Telecommuting works, and I believe it should be encouraged. Look at this group here. How many people are sitting in the conference room tonight? I believe it's 2, right? And I'm looking forward to next month's meeting, by the way, because it'd be nice to see people. So the other piece is, I realize a lot of work has gone into this plan and there's a lot of great stuff in it. It discriminates against anybody who lives in a rural community. Someone who lives in Essex Town, 20 minutes to drive to Burlington, hour and 45 minutes or more to ride the bus. That's assuming you can drive your car to get to the bus. Buell's Gore, Huntington, many other communities, no other way other than to drive, for example, from Buell's Gore. You could drive to Richmond and then be on the transit schedule there. Yes, that's a possibility, but you've already done 3/4 of the drive. The only way to make the increased parking fees and that sort of stuff work is to dramatically increase transit availability. I'm not suggesting that buses should be going to Buell's Gore. But Huntington and Richmond, there would need to be some service there. So it really has to be thought out to work for people, as Jeff suggested or mentioned, folks in St. Albans. For them to get to Burlington, same thing. It really needs to be thought through on a convenience basis. And I realize we've been spoiled for, well, my entire generation. But since the development of the interstate, we've been spoiled by having cars that will get us anywhere and everywhere. And we do have to adapt. And the problem is that we do not have a living pattern that can really handle that right now. So anyway, there are things in here that definitely concern me. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Garrett. Andy, I think you were next.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks so much for all the work that got put into this. Obviously, there was tons and tons of effort, and I really applaud that. My questions really go to the employer side of the initiatives that are being looked at? And just want to understand a little bit better, are the initiatives that are being, looked at for employers, ones that are supportive and voluntary, or are they ones that, is it contemplated that any of them would be mandatory, that would be put on employers to do?
I think the approach is more the carrot tactic at this point rather than the stick approach.
Good. I think that approach makes a lot of sense. The employers, especially small employers, have their hands full with so many different things. Support in this would be great. Guidance on how to help their employees would be great, but I think trying to impose any mandates on them could just make life all the more challenging for them in today's environment. So I think that's the right approach. So thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. Ben.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also want to express my appreciation for all the hard work and the efforts, especially as people come up with more questions and comments. But one thing in talking about mileage-based fees or taxes, it's perhaps one component where we're centralizing. A lot of the school districts are being more and more centralized. For example, in Westford, where younger kids are going to have to be bused, or if their parents don't want them to spend an hour and a half on buses going and coming, and we're talking about fairly young children, they're going to be driving, having to drive them. And these are young couples with kids. These are the people we need to be supporting, not adding additional taxes to an additional burden. And I've got to believe that this holds true for Jericho, Underhill, and Westford, and even St. Albans. So we have to think about these things and their impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the comment.
Any
It's
other
already
comments?
the case in Huntington and various other outlying towns where kids spend an hour and a half to 2 hours each way on the school bus now.
That is true.
Yep.
Other comments? I'm not seeing anything. I think we're ready for a motion to adopt the Regional Transportation Options Plan as presented.
So moved. Sandy.
And Andy, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chris. Any final comments? Seeing none, move to a vote. All in favor of adopting the plan, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any nays, please raise your hand or say nay. Seeing none. Any abstentions? Seeing none. I'm sorry, Bruce, I'm just seeing, I think, your hand up.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll vote for it. I'm in.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you for that. We're ready to move on. I think we're on to Ann Nelson with the draft community liaison policy.
Yes. I am going to share my screen quickly. Just give me one moment.
Before you do that, Ann Nelson, who's your assistant there?
I know Ray is helping me out this evening.
Nice.
And Nelson, let me know if you want me to share the document or do anything. I have 3 hands and you have 1. So
Thank you. I think I can get it if I can get my tabs in order here. Okay. Okay, can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is a draft community liaison policy for CCRPC. And we are hoping to end this conversation with a vote to approve or adopt this policy as a part of CCRPC's public participation plan update. So I'm going to walk through it, and it's pretty short, so hopefully it won't take very much time. But the purpose of this policy is to establish a consistent framework for compensating individuals who support outreach and engagement work as community liaisons. So we talked about the stipend policy a couple of board meeting, or was that the last board meeting? This policy is distinct in that this is about contracting with individuals, either as individuals or through organizations, to do community liaison work. And community liaison work typically means assisting staff in designing and conducting inclusive engagement by providing cultural and linguistic expertise, recruiting participants, facilitating dialogue, or just helping to make sure that our work reflects a broad range of perspectives. So we have worked with community liaisons in the past, so this isn't a new thing for the organization, but again, this policy is just trying to establish an organization-wide standard for how we do this work. There's a brief section on eligibility, which just outlines that we can work with individuals who are working independently. We can also work with individuals who work through a partner organization that provides community liaison services, and I'll get more to that in a minute. Compensation, there's no established compensation outlined in this policy. It will vary based on the project's budget, the liaison's experience, expertise, or role, the scope and complexity of the work, and then prevailing rates by peer organizations, and that probably being the biggest or most important one. And again, we'll get back to those peer organizations who provide this service in a minute. When an individual is conducting the work, we will pay the individual independently, as we would a vendor. And when they're working through an organization, we'll pay the organization directly. There is a section on staff process for payment. This works, it's the same as the way we pay any other contractor. An invoice is submitted by the end of each month that outlines deliverables or activities that were performed. The project manager at CCRPC approves it. It goes to the business office. We pay the community liaison. A section on documentation, just ensuring that staff document all liaison engagement work through having a written confirmation of scope of work, rates, and deliverables up front. Obviously keeping all copies of invoices and payment records, and then having a W-9 form for any individual or organization. And that is pretty much the entire policy. In the appendix, though, I will note that I have we've included some more specific resources for staff. So these organizations, CVOEO is the first one listed here, and Burlington's Trusted Community Voices, the next one, currently offer liaison services. So CVOEO, this is a fairly new program through CVOEO. They have paid employees offering liaison services with many different language speaking communities, and they're listed there. CCRPC has a standing MOU with CVOEO right now for this service, and they have a standard rate of $68 an hour for liaison services. So this is an example of an organization that a CCRPC staff member could lean on, reach out to for liaison support, to support with specific engagement for a project if any of these communities were implicated in that project or should be involved in that project. Burlington's Trusted Community Voices is another resource listed here. They offer a similar service, and staff have worked with them in the past. And then CCRPC's Community Engagement Advisory Committee is also listed as a resource because we've worked with members of that committee as community liaisons to support with engagement in the past. We did that for the regional plan update, and it was super effective. And then there's another appendix, which is just a sample invoice that staff can share with individual community members who we're working with who might not have experience with this payment system. And And that is it. So I'll stop sharing and see if anybody has questions about this. We're not going into too much detail because I think we'll kind of play it by ear and see. The more we lean on this as a resource, maybe we'll need to flesh out more details in the future around eligibility and how we work with various liaisons in different circumstances. But for now, it's pretty broad. Yeah, Bard.
I have two questions or comments. First is, it's written to be pretty broadly, so I construed it to potentially include like people who are liaisons to the deaf community as an example. And I don't think that was the original vision, but it would potentially be that broad, I think, would it not?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's my first question. The second one is kind of an awkward question. This came up in the town of Richmond about an obligation to collect I-9s from people who we pay. And that included people who were getting stipends. It was down to a pretty modest amount of money, I think $1,000 or more. And I only point that out. I don't know what our policy is on that, but it might be a challenge at times. And you don't have to answer. I just raise it as something that would likely come up in some scenarios.
Yeah.
How we deal with what appears to be a federal obligation.
What's an I-9?
An I-9 is a form that you fill out and give to your employer. Your employer verifies that you're eligible to be paid as an employee in the United States.
Yeah.
So if I'm correct, and somebody else from CCRPC step in if I'm not, but so a liaison would be like a vendor, so they would not be an employee of CCRPC.
No, it doesn't matter. I'm not, you don't have to be employee either. So here's an example. Select board members in the town of Richmond have been obligated to fill out I-9 forms. We are not employees.
Are you talking about W-9s or
No.
I-9s?
I-9s.
Huh. I know we do that when we hire someone, but we have been treating these as kind of contract vendors. So we're only doing W-9s.
I would just recommend you maybe talk to the attorney or VLCT about what the obligation is, because this came up recently and it was sort of a change in policy, and I think it was at direction from either the attorney or VLCT.
Okay,
so I'll move
good.
on. I just want to point that
explore
out
that.
as
Thank you.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Other
Brad.
questions, Brad?
Yeah, I just wondered about proof of insurance. That's always a big thing with municipalities. Whenever we have a consultant or and I'm trying to wrap my head around the word liaison, but proof of insurance as well, in case something were to arise.
Yeah, I think that came up in a meeting with Forrest as well, and I think we've figured out that because they're a vendor that we wouldn't need a proof. They don't need to have insurance. But Forrest, Charlie, that's right. Yeah.
Not true. I'm a contractor and a vendor to people, and I have to supply certificates of insurance all over the place.
Yeah, we definitely get that for our professional consultants.
Yeah, it's just something you might want to look into. We get it for everybody, but on just camp there, but I'll leave it up to you guys or Forrest to figure out.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're giving us more to explore. Thank you.
And did I read correctly? We give them 1099s?
We would only give them if they exceed that IRS threshold of $2,000. So, and in the past, in a calendar year. So in my personal experience, like the liaisons we worked with for regional plan engagement, did not reach that threshold. So we would not issue 1099s for them, but maybe for, a really large project that lasted a long time, maybe we would end up
Well, I defer to you guys. I'll just say my accountant tells me the threshold is $600. So I don't know what to say.
Yeah, it was
All right.
600 and they
It
just
was increased, Bart. It was
Yeah.
increased for this year.
Yeah, it was 600 last year. You're right.
All right. Thank you for that, Benjamin.
Yes, just on the I-9 form, it is, it's a U.S. Customs and Immigration Services form that establishes that the individual who's being employed, whether as a contractor or any vendor or whatever, has to present, from a list of various identification, a valid items of documentation as to their eligibility to be working within the U.S. So there are penalties for failing to do that. So I just am curious, who is it going to be? The project manager that's on tap to review that? And also, I take it then also that the project manager, from what I hear being said in a brief read, is that the project manager is going to be responsible for ensuring oversight of any disbursements. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the project manager would be responsible for making sure. I mean, right now the project manager is responsible for making sure that a W-9's on file if and when needed. So I would imagine that they would also be responsible for that I-9 if that's something that we need to make sure that we have. And then, yes, the project manager is also the person who is ensuring that the work they're doing is consistent with the original agreement and scope, and there's enough project budget to support the work.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be a stickler, but I would just say it's not if, but it's is, and the penalties for failing to have it in writing and have it done properly, unfortunately, especially in this day and age, carry serious consequences for everyone concerned. So I would just want that to be clarified. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
All right. Well, we got into the nitty gritty of that stuff. Are there any other sort of questions, comments? First, I'd say, and Nelson, thanks for working on this. So I think it's helpful to have a written document that creates at least some structure, even though we've raised some questions about elements of it. Other comments, questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve it.
Garrett has
Garrett.
made a motion. Second? Is there a second? There is a second. Thank you.
Dan Karen second.
Yep. Okay. Moved and seconded. All in favor
Wait,
of
wait,
adopting.
can I ask a
I'm sorry.
question? And Nelson,
Of
based
course.
on this conversation, I'm wondering if we need to take this back a little bit and see if we need to make a few edits before we finalize it.
Yeah, honestly, it feels like more of a view forest question. I don't know the like nitty gritty of, the I-9, and I guess
Yeah.
it's really just the I-9 form that's in question.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like maybe
Charlie, suggest maybe that the motion include with technical conforming edits.
Okay.
If
And
the
make sure we're
motioner
compliant.
and the seconder accept that.
100% okay with that.
I'm okay with that amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, so the
Thanks, Jeff.
motion has been amended to include technical corrections or adjustments.
Right, but we need to
That'll
vote
happen.
on the amendment first and then on the motion.
Okay, so ready to vote on the amendment. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, back to the motion. Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Nays?
Aye.
Any abstentions? The amendment and the motion passed. Thank you, Ann Nelson. And Nelson, I think you're on tap again for the outreach and engagement update.
Yeah. So just my normal update of some work that's been ongoing recently. and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but just want to see if anyone has thoughts or questions. I guess something I'll note is we started a municipal equity community of practice last month. So anyone working at the municipal level who's interested in equity and outreach and engagement work is welcome to join. We had, I think, 7 people at the January meeting, and we'll have another one at the end of this month, next Friday. So I'm excited about that. And still working to support the town of Shelburne, doing some outreach and engagement to inform their town plan. And then trying to get this public participation plan update moving along. So this community liaison being the second piece of it, and the language access plan will be coming next. Any thoughts or questions?
I'm not seeing any.
And Nelson, did you want to talk about the frequency at which you provide these updates?
Oh yeah, I was thinking about, I have been providing these every month, and I was wondering if you all would be amenable to the idea of shifting it to maybe quarterly, so that I have a little more substantial updates, and yeah, it takes up less time at each meeting.
Any
'Cause a lot of
concern?
this work is ongoing.
Yeah, it makes sense. Any concerns about moving from monthly to quarterly from members?
That sounds
present?
great.
Apparently make it so.
Cool. Thank you all. Thanks, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for your assistance. Excellent behavior.
You want to say bye? Oh. I am gonna go put him to bed, but nice
He
to
does,
see you
yeah.
all.
Charlie, on to you. Executive Director updates. As chair, I have no substantive updates.
Okay, I'm not, we'll see how mine are. So just a reminder that the next meeting we'll do in person. I'm hoping folks can join us in our conference room. We will, get some pizza for Jeff, and the rest of you can have crumbs. So that's just a reminder. Also, Emma has sent out an invite to your select boards, kind of asking for 1 or 2 members to join us on March 30th. So like every 4 months or so, we're trying to do kind of a select board chair or at least some rep of each of the select boards. We've been getting like 20-ish people to show up the first couple times. So just a heads up, I think, Emma, do you remember when that went out? Probably the initial thing went out a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago. I think we have about 12 people so far, but it's still over a month away. So we'll get probably up to that 20 or so mark. Yeah.
Yep. And then the third reminder, is just the annual meeting. We have decided to do it at Waterworks again. And this is, we may spend a minute celebrating our 60th anniversary, and I heard there's going to be a big party, Dana, for a lady. So that's great.
I'm in charge.
Okay. We are forewarned. That's good.
Yeah.
On to more substantive stuff. Regional plan update. We are still kind of working on edits in response to the LURB's comments. I think you're having a fruitful conversation with the LURB to make sure we're understanding their comments correctly. Also conversations as part of that are going on with towns just working through, and with the Long Range Planning Committee. I'm not sure, there's probably a couple of you that serve on that committee. Thank you for doing that. I think they had a good meeting last night to work through some of the plan language. And over the next couple meetings, we'll be working to finalize the map edits, which are a little more detailed and a little more interesting. Any questions on regional plan process? I think we're still targeting bringing it draft to you in April with and warning the public hearing for May for adoption. I think we're still on schedule for that. With the caveat that there is some discussion on the legislature, or going on in the legislature, that I'm part of that might change. It may change a little bit of wording in some of the mapping definitions that we might want to do take a little bit more time to edit the maps if those legislative changes happen. So I think obviously by April, May, we'll know whether that legislation really is on a track or not. So I just want to caveat, we're still planning on May. There's some chance that if the legislature is amenable, that we may take some more time and do some more edits to it if it's favorable to our towns. So that's still very much an open question in my mind. So, and sorry that I just made that whole conversation a lot more confusing, but just trying to be transparent that there is some dynamic conversation going on. Does that raise any questions for anybody? Benjamin?
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is really a hot issue in Westford. Can you narrow it at all? And what are the areas or the scope of the interest in changing terminology or actual mapping or categories?
More clarification about the 4 Tier 1B eligible areas, downtown centers, village centers, planned growth areas, and village areas. I'm not sure that it would have any implication in a town like Westford, Benjamin, to be honest. Yeah. Just to be really specific, right?
It's the state highway program, Benjamin. It's a state highway problem that we talked a little bit about last time, and the requirement for things to be pedestrian, accessible and those kinds of things. When, Route 7, Route 2, Route 4.
Oop, you muted, Jeff.
Some of those state highways really aren't, lend themselves easily to that kind of language.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the clarification. That helps. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I have been referring to it as the Shelburne Road issue. But I do think, and I want to give credit publicly to the LURB. I think they are really trying to work with their regional planning commissions and our towns to make the system work. It is a big shift in system, so credit on that. And I think legislative update, just to kind of transition right in, testifying tomorrow morning actually about those edits to Act 181 in Senate Natural Resources tomorrow morning. So I'll know, in the next few days, I think we'll know if any edits are actually happening or moving forward or not. Also just testified, was that twice today, I guess, in 2 committees about the budget for RPCs, which is the property transfer tax funds, the regional planning grants for RPCs. So anyway, that's kind of a quick legislative update, really Act 181 budget. The governor did recommend an increase of, I think, 2.5 or 2.6% in the regional planning grant program, which is pretty consistent with other agencies and things. So, so far, so good on that front. Chris?
I had a quick comment just to follow up. Jeff made a great point on the transportation options plan that, the mileage thing is never going to fly in Montpelier and is regressive, which is to heart. So I'm wondering how we as CCRPC can be in a position to testify to advocate for some options that are different and to get ahead of what's going to, we're seeing the graph just slowly slip down for where the gas tax is just going to keep evaporating, and we haven't got anything to pick up the slack, and we're going to need to do more and more. So how do we promote the value of a vehicle and or the weight of a vehicle as ways of annual registration, maybe excise or fees, in order to fund that, if that's an option, just to get everybody thinking, so that in 2 years we can have something in place that is more equitable for the entire state.
Yeah, I did testify in House Transportation last week. and I think they're feeling kind of stuck without some gubernatorial, there's kind of a position of no taxes, and so I'm not sure where they're going with it. They've gotten many different options have been put on the table over the last few years. I think different financing, particularly on the transit, for transit financing, but it also could be expanded to a lot of the revenue sources were agnostic as to whether it went to broad transportation or narrow transit. So there have been a lot of options put on the table, but really it doesn't seem like anything has gotten traction yet. So I don't know, Chris, that's a way above my pay grade as to when they actually open up a track to actually move something forward. And I'm not quite sure what dynamics will have to happen for that to move forward. Sorry to not be more constructive or positive about it, but
when the emergency comes, we'll do a study and we'll push it out another 4 years.
There's been 9 studies on transportation funding in the last 20 years or something.
I just would like to see some muscle and urgency, and I think we've got some through your representation. I'm just not sure what we have in our bag of tricks that could move the needle there. Thank you.
And typically these things, like either from the governor or legislative leadership, someone kind of says, you know what, this one looks like a good one, or these two, let's have some debate, and they really start working on something. And that just hasn't really happened yet. And I'm not sure what it's going to take, but definitely the transportation funding situation is not in a good scenario right now. I think you probably all saw VTrans was talking about like another 30 position reduction in staff for FY27, I guess, for July. So it's not headed in a good direction right now.
And with the average new car price at $50,000 and the average car payment now for 20% of the funds over $1,000 a month, it ain't going anywhere real fast in a good direction. So I don't know. I remember when $50,000 got you a condo.
Amen. I think that unless there are other questions, that's the rest of that's the end of my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Charlie. Draw your attention to the committee liaison activities and reports with links below. And then any members' items.
Men's hockey team, Olympic hockey team beat Sweden 2-1 in overtime.
That's going to be a great highlight.
They're in the semis.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Any other members' items?
No, just so everyone have a good town meeting day.
Michaela Schifrin got a gold. She used to ski here. My daughter actually raced against her when she was 11.
Wow.
Did she win?
Michaela, this is a funny story. Michaela was absolutely the best skier on the mountain at age 11 or 12. She beat the next skier by like 2 seconds, which is an eternity in like GS racing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and probably raced against your daughter too, then, because I raced against Michaela Schifrin for Bolton. I raced for Bolton Valley growing up. So
awesome.
And
my daughter was at Cochrane's.
Other Olympic news was Hillary Knight got engaged today, and she scored a goal on my daughter in her prime of 14-year-old hockey, 15-year-old hockey.
That's in the Olympics. What a small world.
Really?
Two people from Richmond won a total of 3 medals. I think that must be the highest per capita score. Anyway,
welcome
sorry
to
for all
Vermont.
that.
And on the 50th anniversary.
Ready for a motion to adjourn?
Also move.
Thank you.
Second.
Garrett. Thank you, Ben. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Apparently not.
Everyone thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. Be
Take care, everybody.
safe. Safe
Bye.
travels.